I sat in the family court conference room, watching Marcus deliver the performance of his life, 18 years of marriage, and I'd never seen him act this convincingly desperate. "Your Honor, I want to be completely transparent," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "My consulting business collapsed during the pandemic. I lost our major clients. The revenue streams dried up completely." Judge Patterson leaned forward, her expression sympathetic. Marcus had dressed carefully for this temporary hearing, an older suit, slightly worn at the cuffs, no expensive watch. His attorney, Richard Brennan from one of the city's top firms, sat beside him, radiating expensive competence wrapped in false concern. "Mr. Castellano," Judge Patterson said gently, "I understand business difficulties. Can you outline your current financial situation?" Marcus pulled out a folder, his movements deliberate and defeated. "I've prepared a complete financial disclosure. My business checking account has $8,400, personal savings, $12,300. I'm actually carrying about $47,000 in business debt loans I took trying to keep things afloat." He slid papers across the table. I watched Brennan nod along, adding his professional validation. "My client has been devastated by these circumstances," Brennan said smoothly. "He's had to let go of his office space, work from home. The Mercedes was sold 6 months ago. He's driving a 2015 Honda now." I'd seen that Honda. Marcus had bought it specifically for these proceedings, parking it prominently at his apartment complex, while his actual car, a 2023 BMW 7 CRI, sat in his business partner's garage. "Ms. Castellano," Judge Patterson turned to me, "I know this is preliminary, but has your husband provided financial support during the separation?" "Minimal, Your Honor," my attorney, Sarah Chen, responded. "He's paid exactly $2,000 per month, claiming that's all he can afford." Marcus looked pained. "I wish I could do more. I've been taking freelance work, anything to make ends meet. But after rent, insurance, the debt payments, ... double quotes." He trailed off, shaking his head. Then Brennan delivered their offer. "Your Honor, in the interest of resolving this matter efficiently, my client is willing to offer a settlement. He'll give Ms. Castellano the $75,000 remaining from the sale of their marital home, plus he'll take on all the business debt himself. She'll walk away clear, with enough to restart her life." Marcus looked at me then, and I saw the calculation behind his concerned expression. He thought I was desperate. I'd been working as a freelance graphic designer, living in a small rental. I'd been careful to appear financially stressed, uncertain, maybe a little overwhelmed by the divorce process. "That's very generous given his circumstances," Brennan continued. "Ms. Castellano would receive more than half the remaining liquid assets, and she'd have no debt responsibility." Judge Patterson looked at me. "Ms. Castellano, do you want to respond?" I took a slow breath, letting them see me hesitate. "I need time to think about this. It's not what I expected." "Of course," Marcus said quickly, his voice dripping with understanding. "I know this is hard, Emma. Take the time you need. I just want you to be okay." Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, our prearranged signal. She knew what I was doing. "Your Honor, we'd like to continue this hearing," Sarah said professionally. "My client needs time to review this offer with counsel." 2 weeks, Judge Patterson ruled. "We'll reconvene on the 15th. As we left the courthouse, Marcus actually touched my arm. "Emma, I know you're angry, but please, be reasonable. This is everything I have." I looked at him, this man I'd loved, who'd shared my bed for nearly 2 decades, who was lying so smoothly I almost admired the skill. "I'll think about it, Marcus," I said quietly. His relief was visible. Brennan was already on his phone, probably telling his partners the case would settle quickly and cheaply. They had no idea what was coming. 4 months earlier, before I'd even filed for divorce, I'd been in a different office having a very different conversation. Victoria Martinez didn't look like someone who unraveled financial crimes for a living. In her 60s, with reading glasses on a chain and cardigans that belonged in a library, she looked like someone's favorite grandmother. But she was a certified forensic accountant who testified in over 200 divorce cases and had a reputation for finding money that didn't want to be found. "Tell me what made you suspicious," she'd said, her pen poised over a legal pad. 3 things, I'd explained. "First, Marcus told me business was slow, but he wasn't stressed. He's normally anxious about money. When business genuinely struggled 5 years ago, he couldn't sleep. This time, calm as could be." Victoria nodded, making notes. "Second, his business partner, Tony Brescia, has been acting strange, avoiding me, awkward when I see him. They've been partners for 12 years. Tony was practically family. Now he can't look me in the eye. And third, a travel receipt I found. Marcus said he went to a conference in Miami last March, but the receipt was from Cyprus Airways. When I asked about it, he said it was a mistake, that his travel agent booked the wrong flight and had to cancel. But why would a flight to Cyprus even come up? Victoria had set down her pen and looked at me directly. Mrs. Castellano, I need to be honest about what this investigation costs. My retainer is $15,000, and a full forensic analysis of business records, banking patterns, and potential offshore accounts could run $40,000 to $60,000 total. There's no guarantee I'll find anything. I have an inheritance from my mother, I'd said. Money Marcus doesn't know about. She left it directly to me, and I never deposited it in our joint accounts. I can pay. Then let's start with what you can access. I'll need 7 years of tax returns, any business documents you have access to, bank statements, credit card records, everything. Over the next 4 months, Victoria had worked methodically. I'd provided everything I could find. Marcus had been careless about leaving financial documents around, probably because he'd assumed I wasn't paying attention. I dephotographed files, forwarded emails I had access to, documented everything. Victoria had started with the tax returns, comparing income reported to the IRS against the actual deposits in Marcus's business accounts. Look at this, she'd shown me in our second meeting. 2021 tax return shows $340,000 in consulting revenue, but his business checking account shows $287,000 in deposits that year. That's $53,000 missing. Could it be expenses? Expenses don't disappear before deposits. This is revenue that hits somewhere else. The question is where. She'd traced his business structure next. Castellano Consulting Group was the main entity, but there were others. 3 LLCs registered in Delaware, all with Marcus listed as a member. One was clearly legitimate, a holding company for equipment, but the other 2 had no obvious business purpose. Shadow companies, Victoria had explained. They exist on paper. They have bank accounts, but they don't conduct real business. They're pass-throughs. Then she'd found the pattern in his credit card statements. Wire transfer fees, always in odd amounts. $47, $83, $62. Small enough not to trigger automatic reporting, large enough to add up. He's making international transfers, Victoria had said, highlighting the charges. Small, frequent, irregular amounts. Classic pattern for someone trying to move money without creating obvious trails. The Cyprus Airways receipt had been the key. Victoria had contacted an international investigator she worked with, someone who specialized in European banking havens. Cyprus was a favorite for Americans hiding money. EU member, stable banks, strong privacy laws. 3 months into the investigation, Victoria had called me with barely suppressed excitement. I found it, or rather, I found the trail. She'd laid out the evidence in her office. Documents covering her entire conference table. Marcus established a company in Cyprus 18 months ago, Castellano Holdings Limited. He used Tony Brescia as the registered agent, probably promised him a cut to stay quiet. The company has 2 bank accounts at Cyprus branches of international banks. She'd pulled up bank statements. She'd gotten them through legal discovery channels by serving subpoenas to the American branches of the banks, requiring them to produce foreign account information. Account 1 has $1.8 million. Account 2 has $1.4 million. Total, $3.2 million. I'd stared at the numbers, my hands shaking. How did he move that much without me knowing? Carefully, and over time, Victoria had explained. He'd invoice clients through Castellano Consulting Group, but he'd direct some of them to pay his Cyprus company instead. He told them it was for international tax optimization. Companies do this legitimately, so it didn't raise red flags. The money would wire directly to Cyprus, never touching American accounts where you'd see it. She'd showed me the trail. Invoices from major corporations, tech companies, financial firms, all paying Castellano Holdings Limited for international consulting services. The payments were large, $80,000 here, $120,000 there, $200,000 from a Fortune 500 company. He's been doing this systematically for 3 years. Victoria had continued, small amounts at first, then larger, as he got confident. He probably started planning this divorce years ago. Can you prove it? In court, Victoria had smiled then, A grandmother's smile with steel underneath. Mrs. Castellano, I've compiled a 40-page forensic report with exhibits, every transaction traced, every invoice documented, every bank statement authenticated. I have the Cyprus company registration with his signature. I have emails between Marcus and Tony discussing keeping the offshore accounts growing. I have everything. And the debt, he claims, complete fiction. The business loans exist on paper. He took them out recently, probably to create a paper trail of financial distress. But the money from those loans, wired to Cyprus within days. I have those transactions too. I'd sat there processing what she was telling me. $3.2 million. Hidden for years, while I'd been working to contribute to household expenses, worried about our retirement, suggesting we cut back on vacations. Marcus had been salting away millions. What do we do now? I'd asked. Now, you file for divorce, and we wait for him to lie under oath. The bigger the lies, the worse it looks for him. Let him commit perjury. Let him hide assets in his financial disclosure. Then we bury him with evidence. 2 weeks later, we reconvened in Judge Patterson's courtroom. This time it wasn't a conference room. Sarah had requested a formal hearing with court reporters. Marcus had looked annoyed but not worried. Your Honor, Sarah had begun, we're prepared to respond to Mr. Castellano's settlement offer. But first, we'd like to introduce some evidence that's come to light during our own investigation. Brennan had shifted in his seat. Your Honor, discovery hasn't been completed. This is highly irregular. The evidence concerns Mr. Castellano's sworn testimony in this court, Sarah had said calmly, specifically, his claims about his financial situation. We believe the court needs to see this immediately. Judge Patterson had frowned. Proceed, but carefully, Miss Chen. Sarah had nodded to me, and I'd stood, carrying a banker's box to the plaintiff's table. Marcus had watched, confused at first, then increasingly nervous as I'd begun laying out documents. Your Honor, we'd like to call Victoria Martinez as an expert witness. Victoria had entered the courtroom, professional and unassuming. After establishing her credentials, forensic accountant, CPA, certified fraud examiner, over 25 years of experience, Sarah had gotten to the point. Ms. Martinez, did Ms. Castellano retain you to conduct a financial investigation? Yes, she did. In February of this year. And what did that investigation reveal? Victoria had opened her report, speaking clearly for the court reporter. I discovered that Mr. Castellano has systematically concealed approximately $3.2 million in assets from his wife. These assets are held in 2 bank accounts in Cyprus, controlled by a company called Castellano Holdings Limited, which Mr. Castellano established in 2023. The courtroom had gone completely silent. I'd watched Marcus's face drain of color. Your Honor, this is absurd. Brennan had started. I have documentation. Victoria had continued. Unfalsifiable bank statements authenticated by the banks themselves, obtained through legal subpoenas, company registration documents from the Cyprus Registrar of Companies, invoices showing clients paying the Cyprus entity for services actually performed by Mr. Castellano's American business, wire transfer records showing the movement of funds, email correspondence between Mr. Castellano and his business partner discussing these accounts. She'd begun laying out exhibits, organizing them precisely. Bank statements showing the $1.8 million and $1.4 million balances, the company registration, Marcus's signature clear on the incorporation documents, emails printed out with dates and timestamps. On September 2023, Mr. Castellano wrote to Tony Brescia, Cyprus accounts looking good. Another 6 months and we'll be set. On March 2024, make sure the quarterly transfers go through. Need to hit $3 million before filing. Those emails are private, Marcus had blurted out. They were produced by Mr. Brescia, in response to a subpoena, Victoria had said calmly. Mr. Brescia was served 3 weeks ago. He's cooperating fully and has admitted to serving as the registered agent for the Cyprus company in exchange for $50,000 that Mr. Castellano promised him. Judge Patterson had been reading the bank statements, her expression hardening with each page. Mr. Castellano, you testified under oath 2 weeks ago that you had less than $21,000 in total assets. Marcus's hand had been shaking as he'd gripped the table. I can explain. You told this court you were broke. Judge Patterson had continued, her voice cutting. You offered your wife $75,000 as if it were a generous sacrifice. Meanwhile, you have $3.2 million hidden in foreign accounts. Your Honor, My client needs time to consult with counsel. Brennan had tried. Your client committed perjury in my courtroom, Judge Patterson had snapped. Ms. Martinez, is there more? Yes, Your Honor. The business debt, Mr. Castellano claims. I traced those loans. The money was borrowed from American banks, but wired to Cyprus within 72 hours of disbursement. He created fake debt to appear financially distressed, while actually moving more money offshore. The debt is real, but the money isn't gone, it's sitting in his Cyprus accounts. Victoria had pulled up a chart she'd prepared, showing the loans on one side and the corresponding wire transfers on the other, matching amounts and dates. He took out $230,000 in business loans over the last 8 months. All of it went to Cyprus. He planned to claim the debt in the divorce while keeping the actual money hidden. Sarah had then introduced the travel records. Your Honor, Mr. Castellano made 4 trips to Cyprus over the past 18 months. He told his wife they were business trips to Miami and Atlanta. But we have passport stamps, hotel receipts, and bank records showing he was meeting with bank officers to manage these accounts. The evidence had kept coming: client invoices showing payments to the Cyprus company, tax returns that omitted the foreign income, analysis showing how Marcus had systematically understated revenue for years. Finally, Sarah had addressed the court directly. Your Honor, Mr. Castellano didn't just hide assets, he committed fraud against his wife, against this court, and against the IRS. He created an elaborate scheme to steal marital assets and conceal them through international channels. Judge Patterson had looked at Marcus with unconcealed anger. Mr. Castellano, do you have anything to say? Marcus had opened his mouth, closed it, then looked at Brennan desperately. His attorney had been pale, clearly calculating the damage to his own reputation for bringing a perjuring client before the court. Your Honor, Marcus had finally said, his voice barely a whisper, I need to speak with my attorney. I'm sure you do, Judge Patterson had said coldly. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Castellano, you are ordered to immediately disclose all foreign bank accounts, including account numbers and current balances. You will provide unfettered access to Ms. Martinez for a complete audit. You will not move, transfer, or access any funds in any foreign accounts pending resolution of this case. Violation of this order will result in criminal contempt charges. She'd paused, letting that sink in. Furthermore, I'm awarding Ms. Castellano temporary spousal support of $15,000 per month, retroactive to the date of separation. This will be paid from your Cyprus accounts if necessary. And Mr. Castellano, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of perjury charges, and to the IRS for investigation of potential tax evasion. Marcus had looked like he might be sick. We'll reconvene in 30 days for a full financial disclosure hearing. Ms. Chen, prepare an order reflecting today's rulings. This hearing is adjourned. As the judge had left the bench, Marcus had turned to me, his face a mixture of shock and rage. You've been investigating me for months. You set me up. I'd met his eyes calmly. I documented the truth. Marcus said, everything Victoria found. You actually did. I didn't set you up. You set yourself up when you decided to steal from our marriage. You're going to destroy me. No, I'd said quietly. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure there was evidence. The final settlement came 3 months later. Marcus's attorney Heat had to hire a new one after Brennan withdrew from the case, had tried to negotiate. But there wasn't much room to maneuver. The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria's complete audit had actually found more money, $3.4 million total, when she'd traced additional accounts Marcus had opened in Malta. The judge had ruled that since Marcus had deliberately concealed marital assets, those assets would be divided 70-30 in my favor. I received $2.38 million, plus the original $75,000 Marcus had offered. He kept $1.02 million and took on all the legitimate business debt. But the financial settlement was only part of it. The IRS investigation revealed that Marcus had failed to report $620,000 in foreign income over 3 years. Tony Brescia, who'd cooperated with the investigation, faced no criminal charges but did have to pay back the $50,000 Marcus had given him. Their business partnership dissolved, and Marcus's reputation in their industry was shattered. Word spread quickly about what he'd done, and clients started dropping him. The Cyprus accounts were frozen by court order until the settlement was finalized. Marcus had to pay international legal fees to access his own money, and the process was expensive and humiliating. For me, the money was life-changing. but the vindication mattered more. For 3 years, Marcus had been planning to leave me with scraps while he sailed off into a wealthy retirement. He'd gaslit me about finances, made me feel guilty about spending, all while hiding millions. Victoria had charged $52,000 for her work, worth every penny. Sarah's legal fees ran another $85,000 for the complex international asset case. But I walked away with over $2.2 million after all costs. And Marcus walked away with his reputation destroyed and a fraction of what he'd tried to hide. The day the settlement was finalized, I met Sarah and Victoria for lunch at a restaurant overlooking the harbor. Sarah raised her glass of wine. "To justice," she said. "To documentation," Victoria added with a small smile. "To never underestimating your wife," I finished. We clinked glasses, and I thought about Marcus sitting in his small apartment, probably wondering where it all went wrong. The answer was simple. The moment he thought I was too trusting, too naive, too financially unsophisticated to figure out what he was doing, he'd underestimated me completely, and that $3.2 million mistake had cost him everything. I'd started the divorce afraid I'd end up with nothing. Instead, I'd ended up with justice, financial security, and the satisfaction of knowing that the truth, backed by irrefutable evidence and expert testimony, had won in the end. Marcus had been right about one thing during our marriage. I wasn't good with numbers, but I'd been smart enough to hire someone who was, and that had made all the difference.